Okay, these problems are all problems dealing with cosine. And what we know is cosine of the ratio is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, it's similar to sine in the fact that it's always over the hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle. So when I look at this problem, my reference angle is the 64. Okay, and if the reference angle is 64, the x side is the adjacent because it's actually attached to that angle and it's made up by that angle, and the 16 is my hypotenuse. So to do this, I would write the ratio at cosine, and I would put the angle in. 64 degrees is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 16. All right, so in doing this, I'm going to notice that I can cross multiply, okay, because, and I'm going to put this over 1 just for the fun of it, and it looks like a proportion, so I'm going to cross multiply, and lo and behold, there's numbers in there. So in my calculator, what I'm going to put is 16, and then I would say cos of 64 is equal to x. I always put the 16 in front because I want to multiply by the cos, and it doesn't matter. Multiplication is commutative, so I can switch the order, but when I divide, it matters, so I kind of get in the habit of always putting the constant in front of the value. Okay, so now in my calculator, I can just push exactly what I have there. So I can have 16 times, and then I'm going to hit the cos key, 64, I'm going to close the parentheses, and I'm going to hit equals, and at this point I get 7.0139. Okay, and I said to round to the nearest integer, so if I round to the nearest integer, I'm going to look at this number only, and that's going to tell me what to do, and it's 0, so it's less than 5, so that means I'm not going to round it up, I'm just going to keep it. So my final answer is x is about 7. All right, so that's the first one. Let's look at the second problem. So the second problem, I am now going to look for the hypotenuse instead. So my angle is the 50 degrees, that's my reference spot. I'm looking for AB, which is the hypotenuse. Okay, and then my 5, if I'm standing at 50, the 5 is the adjacent side because it's next to it and it makes up the angle. So I'm going to use the same ratio. So I'm going to go cosine, and I know it's cosine because it's adjacent and hypotenuse. That's part of what I got to figure out. So I would say cosine of 50 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And I'm going to call it h for this particular problem. All right, I'm going to put it over 1 just so I get in the habit of knowing it's a proportion. And I'm going to go ahead and look, and I go over here and I cross multiply, and I look and I see, ooh, there's not a number there. Okay, so I know I'm going to end up dividing for this, so I'm going to just jump right to the equation that I'm going to put in my calculator. So to solve this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 5, and then I'm going to put in my calculator divided by cos of 50 is equal to h. And I'm going to put that exactly in my calculator. And again, you have to put the 5 in the front because it matters what order you use division. It's not commutative like multiplication is. So I'm going to go 5 divided by, I'm going to hit cos 50 and hit enter. And that's going to give me another 7 point something. So 7.777, 7.778, and it goes on. Okay, and I'm rounding to the nearest integer. Okay, so that means, again, I'm going to look at this guy because that would be the number after the nearest integer. And the 7 tells me I want to round it up. So in this case, my answer is going to be about 8. All right, and again, kind of eyeballing it and thinking about it, you know, that makes sense because the hypotenuse should be bigger than, it should be the longest side, and it is bigger than 5, so I'm pretty confident on that. With the number 1 problem, when I look at that, I see that the hypotenuse was 16 and my answer was 7, so I'm like, that's probably okay because it's less than 16. If I happen to get it was bigger than 16, then I know I did something wrong. Okay, next problem. I am looking for the angle. So I have switched, so I'm still here. This is my reference angle, but at this point I'm going to look for the angle. So I need to use a different key in my calculator. So I still look at it, and if this is my reference angle, so right here is my reference angle, this is where I'm standing. So this is still a hypotenuse because it's across in the right angle. And now this guy is my adjacent side because it's attached to my angle. So this is my hypotenuse and this is my adjacent. And again, I'm thinking, okay, cosine uses adjacent and hypotenuse. So I'm going to say cos of theta, theta just represents the angle and that's what I'm looking for, is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so now when I'm doing this, I'm going to find what the ratio of this is, and then I'm going to insert it into my calculator to get the angle. So in my calculator, what I'm going to type is I'm going to put cos -1. So I don't want to use the regular cos key. I want to use its, if I shift, I use the second key and I shift at the cosine, it's going to give me to the cosine -1. Okay, and then I'm going to put in 14 divided by 15. And then I'm going to hit equals. Okay, so this one, cos second function, then I'm going to do 14 divided by 15. I'm going to close up the parentheses if I need to. And that gives me 21.039. And I'm going to the nearest degree, so I'm just going to look at the 3, and the nearest degree would tell me it's about 21 degrees. So theta is about 21 degrees. All right, so those are the 3 different kinds of techniques I would use to solve these, and they're all just calculator, but you have to know which way to put it in. If you don't put it in the right way, you're not getting the right answer. If you are not getting the same answers as I do, check that your calculator's in degree mode, not radian mode. That would be my other tip. Thank you.